Hello and welcome to the Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friend. If you've been looking for a podcast geared towards your growth, self-awareness, navigating your brain's daily mind drama, and deep inner work to become your highest and best self, you are in the perfect place. Let's get started. Good morning, happy Monday, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm Macy Renee, and I am so excited to have you with me this morning or whenever you're listening to this. Today, we are going to talk about duality and what that means and how that shows up and what that looks like. But before we do that, I wanted to quickly thank the people that have left me a Google review. So I am actually going to put that link in the show notes below and ask that if you have been a client of mine in any of my programs, free or paid, or you're just an avid listener to the podcast and you've learned something and you've found that this work is very valuable, I would love to ask if you'd be willing to write a Google review with the link that I'm going to place in the show notes. Some of you may know that I have recently expanded my coaching services to serve corporate leaders who want to become more emotionally intelligent in their role as a leader. And a lot of times people in the corporate world don't utilize, social media to find people. They're using things like LinkedIn and Google searches. So I've been trying to figure out Google Ads and what all of that looks like, but something that really helps me and, helps people know that I am credible with, the last 4 years of the work that I've been putting out is seeing people like you that have some sort of experience interacting or learning from me. So what I would love to ask is if you would take literally maybe 2 minutes or less to share something that has been valuable to you through learning from me, right? So you can start the review with, because of Macy's podcast, or, because of working with Macy through one-on-one coaching, I have blah, 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 or listening to Becoming Your Highest Self podcast has taught me, showed me, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So you can kind of separate it that way. That way people who are reading those reviews know that you've either been impacted by the work that you've been, listening to on the podcast for free, or if you, again, are a client or have been a client, they'll know that you and I work together. And so you can just be very clear about how you've learned from me in whatever capacity and what it has taught you. And I would just so appreciate the time that you take to do that. And for those of you that did, I really do appreciate it. I read the few that came through and I was in tears, and I'm just so thankful that you are willing to take the time to write something so heartfelt and honest, and how even the podcast has really changed your perspective or changed your life or saved you from something that was really terrible. So thank you so much for doing that. And if anybody else could do that, again, it's in the link in the show notes. So today, you guys, we're going to talk about duality and what that means. And I thought that this would be a good time to talk about it because, as you guys know, my husband and I, we sold our home in Kentucky way back in May. And then we lived with family members throughout the summer. And then in September, we packed up a moving truck and we drove across the country and settled down in Las Vegas, where both of us are now full-time entrepreneurs. So prior, my husband worked in corporate America. I was an occupational therapist for pediatrics and building my business on the side. And now I am full-time in coaching, and he is building his business in real estate. And I think duality is a perfect topic to talk about because duality means that you can be experiencing two opposite things at the very same time. So it's kind of like when you hear a lot of people say, well, it's either or it's this or that, or I'm all or nothing. That is not necessarily what duality means. Duality is more so both and. So I can be blank and blank, even if they mean opposite things. Okay, so we'll go into more examples of that. But I wanted to share a little bit about this because this move has been in some ways very challenging, right? I left my family behind. My sister is in labor as we speak. I'm recording this. I have been a wreck all day. We have not had a new family member added to our family in 23 years. My youngest sister is the baby of the family, and she's 23. So this is the first baby in our family in 23 years, and I now live halfway across the country. And so I've been texting my sister throughout the day, like, how are you doing? Please text me, give me updates, but also trying to give her space, because I can only imagine that when you're in labor, the last thing you want to do is, kind of be on your phone and have people harassing you or asking you questions. So I've been trying to find the balance of like not totally, annoying the crap out of her while she's going through something so huge in life. But with that being said, I had my first meltdown the other day, and the meltdown came from really just needing to experience and feel a lot of the emotions that maybe I haven't felt yet. So we've been here about 4 months, and I've been doing really well. I've actually surprised myself with how well I've been doing. Of course, I miss my friends. Of course, I miss my family. But at the same time, I've had my head down. I've been working. I'm really eager to, be expanding, working, getting ready to present myself to corporate leaders and, just partner with the people who really desire what I have to offer. But there's been a lot of like back end work that I've had to do to even get up to this point, and there are still steps I need to take to really get there. So I've kind of been drowning myself in work, and I hadn't been leaving the house much. Like my husband and I, we do try to go to the gym almost every single day. There are occasional times where I'll stay home because I am very much like, I become overwhelmed sometimes with a lot of energy and a lot of going. Like that's just not my style. So sometimes I will stay home. But what I had found in the last few weeks is I've literally locked myself up in this apartment, and I hadn't been around other people outside of my husband and my dog since Thanksgiving. And I felt all of these emotions, and I started to notice that I was kind of dropping into a victim mentality of feeling sorry for myself. Like, moving's really hard, and I want to, be able to be, no more than 30 minutes to an hour away from my sister in case she needs me. And this is just not fair. And this is really hard. And there's so many things I have to do. And, and I was just really starting to get down on myself. And I also noticed that I was feeling lonely. Like I'm surrounded by, hundreds of thousands of people that are passing me, in the grocery store and on the roads and in the gym on a daily basis, but literally felt so alone and down. And it really began to take a toll on me. And I actually did a blog post about it. So that is something, side note, just to take a minute, that I have been doing is writing blogs. And you can find those blogs on MacyRenee.com. There's now a tab that says the blog. And you can read kind of what's going on. I aim to be transparent. I aim to write content on there that's going to help you in addition to the podcast, and just offer another avenue. If listening, to audio is not always your style and you kind of prefer reading things and becoming inspired by what you read, then that is now an option for you as well. So there's a lot of ways that you can be supported by being in my world, even if you're not investing financially in yourself at this time. So going back to that, I was feeling a lot of negative emotions, and I just allowed myself to cry it out. And in the blog, I actually talked about how I'm so thankful that I've worked for years on my emotional intelligence, and that my husband has a pretty good foundation of emotional intelligence as well, because in the past, I think that we could have been in an explosion with me not being able to fully express why I felt upset. Like he would have taken it personal and thought, I've moved her here, it's all my fault, she's not happy here. It just would have been a big thing. So you can read the blog about that. But the point of this podcast today is to talk about duality and how you can be experiencing two things at once that people think are often the complete opposite. So for me in that moment, I was feeling sad and blessed for the opportunity to be here, right? So some people think like, How can you experience such negative night and day emotions and still be okay? How can you experience sadness or even depression, right, to an extent, and still say that you also feel happy? And I can tell you exactly how, because the other day I felt like I was going through a temporary bout of depression, and yet at the same exact time, super excited for what's going on back home, like my sister getting ready to go into labor. And so I'm going to share a few different examples with you of what duality can look like and kind of how that shows up. So it's absolutely possible to be smiling in your day-to-day life, smiling, appearing happy, and also struggling at the same time. So to give you even an example of that, recently in Kentucky, this wasn't in my hometown, but it wasn't that far away from, where the different places that I've lived in Kentucky. So in Mayfield, Kentucky, you might have heard all over the news that a horrible, huge tornado went through and basically took that town, and everything crumbled to the ground, and it's been very devastating. And this is an example of duality, that you could have people in that town that smile because they're alive and they're grateful and they're happy to just be able to say, like, I can't believe that I survived that. And they can also be struggling that they lost everything, or that they lost specific people in their life, or that they're grieving for, the items that maybe were sentimental that they'll never be able to get back, or just the loss of a job because most businesses were destroyed, down to the ground. So it's possible to be smiling or grateful and also be struggling. It's not either or. And I think sometimes in life we think we have to live in this realm of, well, it's either this or that. But duality is super important to know that you can be feeling both, and you don't have to choose. You never have to really choose, right? You can be both sad and happy for different reasons. I know someone that I used to work with, their little one, whose child was born, which is a very happy day, a wonderful, beautiful, amazing day to be celebrating the birth of your child. But that same day that her very first child was born, her mother passed away, who was her best friend. That is another example of duality, okay? So, and this, not that exact situation happened to me, but it was like, I've told you guys about my Oma, who, was my great-grandma. It's so weird to say was my great-grandma. I almost need to say is my great-grandma, even though she's not here anymore. But she was one of my very best friends. And in July of 2018, I think it was, July 3rd of 2018, my husband and I got married. My Oma was able to see us elope. And it was a beautiful day and a happy day. But 1 year to the day, so July 3rd, 2019, I was in the hospital holding my Oma's hand when she took her last breath because she had 2 out of nowhere aneurysms. And it was totally unexpected, and my world fell apart. And so the duality is that July 3rd is a happy day, and July 3rd is an extremely sad day for me. It is both happy and sad, and that is okay. I don't have to choose one or the other. It's not, I'm either going to be happy this day or I'm going to be sad this day. It gets to be both and. So here are some other examples. You can be both kind and set boundaries. It's very possible to do that. You can be a kind human being and have very strong boundaries in your life. You can be vulnerable and yet still powerful. You can be both, okay? You can be an extrovert, so someone who is very extroverted, and also feel very alone. Have you ever experienced that? If you're someone who is super maybe outgoing, you like to be around people, and you're surrounded by a lot of people, but maybe internally you feel alone. That's the duality of life, both. You can be in both, and you can be in both in the exact same time. There's also valuable, right? Feeling very valuable, and also feeling flawed. So being able to love yourself and see the value in yourself, but also being able to see your humanness and maybe mistakes that you've made or the things that aren't, 100% the way that you would hope that they would be. And that's okay. Another example, it's also possible to be an introvert and reach out to people. This is more me. I'm kind of introvert, extrovert. I go through my phases, but I definitely would say if I had to take a quiz, it would come out introvert more so than anything else. So I am introverted and I tend to stay to myself a little bit more because that's where I get most of my energy is when I'm alone. That's what fuels me. Some people are fueled by being extroverted and out. And then some people are fueled by being kind of to themselves and being in and recharging. And I'm definitely more of that. But it's also possible for me as an introvert to reach out and to want to connect with people or check and see how they're doing. Okay, both and. And then another one is you can be capable of doing something and also lost. Have you ever felt like you're totally capable of figuring something out, but also feeling super lost and confused at the same time? That's how I've been feeling for weeks, to be completely honest. I think that perfectly described the duality that I'm in right now, is that I feel like I am fully capable of serving corporate leaders and teaching them emotional intelligence and really coaching them to be the best leaders that they can be, be their highest self in leadership so that they're fostering a good, healthy work environment and people aren't constantly looking for a job because they hate management or they hate the leadership. Okay. So I feel totally capable in my skill set to be able to do that. I also feel super lost with where to begin. I'm like, can't people just reach out to me? And, and I know eventually they will. When I continue to build my brand around that and put myself out there like that, I know that my business will get to a point where, corporate professionals are like, hey, we really need that within our organization. We care that, the people that are working for our company are happy. We care, the leadership cares to do a good job and to be very self-aware. And, I know eventually that people will contact me for my services, but right now I feel both capable of helping them out and lost on where to even really begin. So I've spent the last 4 weeks, honestly, in the duality of both. I'm feeling very capable of my skills and very lost at the same time. And this is all fresh and new and scary and all of the things. Okay. And that's kind of what I wanted to touch on with duality, is that it's not like it's black or white. It can be both black and white, and there's gray in the middle. Okay. Duality is such a beautiful thing. You could be crying, sobbing, and be happy, because they could be happy, amazing tears. You could be watching your baby walk across stage, graduating, and feel both happy and devastated and sad and proud and all of the emotions at once. And so with that, I want to invite you to welcome duality in your life and to recognize when it comes up and to allow yourself to feel the range of emotions. A lot of times when we feel a range of emotions, we assume or think that something's wrong with us. Why do I feel this way? I shouldn't be happy on such a sad day, or I shouldn't be sad on such a happy day. But it's absolutely possible to experience a full range of emotions because you're a human being. And that's a beautiful, wonderful thing, okay? So allow the duality, allow it, embrace it, allow every emotion that you feel to be okay, even if it changes on a minute-to-minute basis based on the circumstances you're experiencing in life. And all of this to say, too, is with duality, the most important part is to feel it. And I think that an episode that will be coming up is to stop running from your feelings, because when you run from your feelings, you're running from your most powerful work, your powerful transformation. And if you really want things to change in your life, you have to learn how to navigate your emotions. And that's kind of why the direction of my business is centering more and more around emotional intelligence and mastery of that, because it controls everything else, right? It totally, like, how you navigate life is based on your emotional awareness and capacity. It's a huge deal. And, awareness around that can change your entire life. So if I can support you in any way, please reach out. MacyRenee.com to find any information you're looking for. Keep in mind that coaching prices are changing and raising in 2022. So if you do listen to this episode, right as it comes out and you've been thinking about coaching and you've kind of been on the fence, schedule a consult call as soon as possible before the year is over, and you can secure the current pricing options, okay? But if not, that's okay. Like, whenever you're ready is when I want clients to be a hell yes. I always am looking for clients to be a hell yes and excited, and never feel like they have to do it from lack or scarcity or fear, that they're always doing it from a place of like, I'm truly ready to become my highest self and I will make it happen, being very resourceful. I always trust that potential clients or clients will be resourceful and find a way to make whatever they want in their life work. It doesn't matter what it is. When we really want something, we figure out a way to make it work. So if I can be of any support to you going into 2022, I would absolutely love that. I look forward to continuing to, go into a new year, providing podcast episodes and now different blogs here and there. Sign up for my email list if you don't want to miss, any announcements. I kind of do like last minute announcements through email a lot of times. So if you need anything, reach out. I love you guys. And again, if you wouldn't mind leaving a Google review, I'm going to leave that link in the show notes, the show notes. And you can just write, just be specific about what has helped you. If it's the podcast, the free content, that's okay. Write that in the Google review. Like, I found Macy's podcast, Becoming Your Highest Self, and it has helped me. It has blah, 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 whatever you want to share. And then if you've been a client of mine, I have worked with Macy one-on-one, or I've worked with Macy in blah, blah, blah capacity, and it has helped me, yada, yada, yada. You don't have to share the specific program or anything like that. You just share whether you've been coached or if you've been listening to the podcast and what you've learned from it. And I would just so appreciate it. So thank you guys. Have a great week, and I will see you again next time. Bye.